Hi everyone, I'm Marcus and I'm ready to boogie.
I'm Ankara and I showered today. And this is
Couple of Kooky Kids.
Ding. Right.
Hello.
First on the agenda. Let me talk to you and not the camera. This is a conversation between two individuals.
Nobody's listening.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Come closer to your microphone.
Okay. Thank you.
Or I could just increase the volume on here.
Could you stop interrupting me?
I could.
Thank you so much. That's all we can say, like, the first episode. Thank you so much for all the insanely positive feedback. Like, we weren't expecting it. Thank you for throwing your glasses in the middle of that. Thank you.
You could have carried on.
We weren't expecting it. Like, we hoped people liked it. You know, people would be like, yeah, that was nice. But we weren't expecting people to be like, yes, please do more. Like, whoa. Like, literally, whoa. We literally had to, like, that's why we took a week out. Not because we were lazy and terrible at organising ourselves. It's because we just had to let it process, let it soak in, you know, like, sit in the positive juices.
I've not been watching Polish movies this whole time.
Whatever. But yeah, thank you so much for all the positive feedback. The fact that people took in what we were saying, appreciated what we were saying, said that what we were saying inspired them, said that they will definitely be regular listeners, saying that this was needed, saying that this was important, because to us we were just like we were like half asleep, very tired. You know, 10 people would listen to this, but it's actually reached people and touched people, and we're just very humbled and thankful for that two dumb teenagers could perhaps enlighten somebody's day.
Mm-hmm. And anyone who actually like came up to me and talked to me that I don't really talk to, mwah, love you. That was fantastic.
Wow, you love your fans.
I love all my fans. All my fans. No, it was just a wonderful experience, and it made me realise that this is actually something that I can enjoy, and hopefully other people can enjoy too. And that's what we're all here to do.
When you create something and people actually like it, it's like,
who?
Are you sure? Are you? Yeah, who, me? This whole thing that I spent an hour plus editing? Like, it's really bizarre. Yeah, anyone who personally messaged me, I'm deeply thankful from the bottom of my heart. Mm-hmm. Genuinely, that may seem like a lot, but genuinely, it was very special to hear. Because very humbling.
It was absolutely terrifying.
Listen,
we're very scared people.
We're very scared people. Like, I'm making an effort to try and be less scared. So I do say I am less scared than you, because I am. Period. But it was very scary. Both of us were like, we're actually doing this. Oh god, what if people hate this? Oh dear, what if no one watches it? Oh fuck. Almost backs out because you can't export an MP4 in Final Cut.
Turns out
Marcus.
It turns out you can.
Who would have thunk? I mean, really.
Turns out spending 2 days trying to export a MOV it's not worth it.
Sometimes you're a real dummy. Anyways.
And sometimes you're an arsehole. Anyway, yeah, we really appreciate anybody who listens for over 10 minutes.
Yeah, the average time was 10-minute watch, which I'm actually quite proud of you guys.
Well done.
Well done.
I wouldn't be able to do it.
I know some people listen to it in sections, which is totally, like, understandable. It was a big chunk of content. But, yeah, that's it. We're enough gushing, enough rambling. We're very happy that people liked it. Would you like to present the sound effect?
I forgot to get the sound effect out, didn't I?
You forgot to prep it, didn't you?
Yeah, I forgot to prep.
Sorry to anyone who's seen my hairy pits. How should I say this? I don't care. I don't shave my armpits.
And neither should you. Here's the sound.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, fuck! You didn't preface it with what's the topic today. You just played it.
I thought I was gonna do it.
Okay, so
this is getting cut.
No, it's It's not raw, real, Brechtian,
wriggling.
real.
Brechtian?
Yes.
And Cara,
It's not even Brechtian. Just fuck up and call it Brechtian.
And Cara, what's the topic today? It was super quiet when it was there.
This is dumb as hell. You gotta replay it.
Again?
Yeah.
That's not going in.
No, it is going in, and I'm gonna put in the description, cut to here when the conversation actually starts.
No, because I'm uploading it.
No, I swear to God. You're editing it here.
And Cara,
I swear to God.
And Cara, what's our topic today?
Mental health. Here we go.
We're talking about mental health.
Talking about mental health. Whew, okay.
We decided.
Okay, you go first.
I just wanted to say that we decided after the heavy topic of last episode, we want to go for something a little bit lighter.
You know, a little bit more full of life. You know, a little more bouncy, a little more like family friendly for the kids.
A little less personal.
A little less personal. We're staring into the camera. A little less personal. You know, a little less. You know, when you're too close to the project, there's too much of you in it. You can't really have an objective opinion, you know? So we decided for something a little less...
A little more...
a little more distance between us and the subject. No, that was complete and utter sarcasm for you idiots out there. Me, mental health, I don't suffer from any illnesses that I know of. I think the word for that is neurotypical. I'm quite neurotypical. I don't have any mental illnesses or disorders that I know of. I would like to know of any if I do. Any psychologists out there, please listen to me talk and please identify my narcissism. That'd be great. You're nodding, yeah. Yeah, but I do family friends that suffer from mental illness, so I have been a support for a lot of people. I don't mind being a support for a lot of people because I don't see it as a burden at all. You learn a lot from other people, but yeah, 9 out of 10 of my friends suffer from a mental illness or have suffered from a mental illness, and I'm here for y'all. I ain't no psychologist, but I'm here for y'all.
That's why we call her the odd one out. It's because she's always left out of the group. So I have a little like nice bundle of grapes when it comes to mental illness. Because first off, I just want to say that teenagers who refuse to
what band is that?
I think it's My Chemical Romance.
Okay, Garo.
I feel as if there's a big stigma. It's becoming less and less, but teenagers still have it that you can talk about mental illness, but never your own. Never your own mental illness. You can't actually talk about it. Whole grape.
Swallowed half a grape.
Wow.
Woo!
That was intense.
That was very intense.
Your eyes lit up. Oh, I'm going to get the old clip of you when we're in the park.
You're not going to edit this.
It's coming in. You remember when we were in the park and you choked on the bit of carrot?
Yeah, and I almost died.
Hey, what's up, you guys? That's going in.
Yeah, do you want to speak about your own mental situation, or would you rather not?
100%.
Rather not?
Both, in equal measures.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so first off, just prefacing, anxiety, depression, probably almost definitely OCD.
Definitely OCD, I've diagnosed it myself.
And, you know, I never really go into so much detail because as much as people gain mental illness in different ways, I feel as if the experience for most people is quite a similar one. Okay, and I feel as if a lot of people watching this, because so many people in the world now suffer from mental illness because of our fucked up world. If you have it, you know what it's like. You know what we're going through. You understand the science probably. You've probably Googled it. You've probably researched it because it affects you.
I wouldn't expect that much.
But
not calling you guys idiots, but I wouldn't expect that much from that people.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy it when you talk about it like deeply and thoroughly, because for someone that hasn't suffered from it, I was going to say as of yet, but I'm not putting that into the universe. But for someone that doesn't, thank you, take it back. Someone that doesn't suffer from it, to hear you talk about it so honestly and with quite eloquent analogies, it helps me understand like what to do. Because sometimes a lot of the times, people who suffer from these things or go through crises or just have their days, they don't want someone's help. They don't want someone to hold their hand and be like, I'm here for you.
I'm right here.
I'm...
if you need anything.
Sometimes
anything.
Sometimes they don't want to talk about it, and that's okay. You know what's not okay? I keep knocking this with my chair.
That's fine. It's just going to sound like an explosion.
Oh god, let me...
There you go.
It's better.
But yeah, so yeah, I suffer from mental illness, like a lot of people do. And I've begun to recognize that as much as you hear it all the time, that it's just like any other form of illness. It literally is, because all that mental illness is at the end of the day is the chemicals in your brain not working right. Just like in the chemicals in your stomach sometimes won't work right and you get the shits.
Mm-hmm.
I get brain shits.
Literal brain shits.
I shit out my brain.
It comes out
and
your
it's
ears
called
and
depression.
Nose.
But yeah, I think that it's such a vital thing to talk about because, again, if we're going back to labeling, something that we always talk about.
Yeah, I liked how a lot of people enjoyed that discussion.
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
Yeah. When you gain the label of, oh, this is Marcus, he has depression, instantly people go, oh.
I'm so sorry. Sorry.
It's a subspecies, but it's a subspecies that I want to help, okay? No, it's like this is Ankara, she gets the shits if she eats meat. You know, it's the exact same thing. The only difference is that mine is something that I really, really can't help a lot of the time. And that's one of the biggest issues with mental illness, I feel, with people, is the fact that nearly every other illness, you have it, and then it goes away. It doesn't go away in nearly every case. Mental illness doesn't go away. It stays, but you can make it better. You know, it's in that way, it's almost terminal. It's just there, and it's always going to be there, and it's going to come in and out and in and out. You can get other people to help you, you can reduce it, but for a lot of people, it just stays. And I'm one of those people, but I figured out my ways of improving and healing and reducing it to as much as possible, so that when we was talk about a cloud coming over, as soon as it comes over, I've got the umbrella already, just instantly there. I carry my umbrella at all times, and it's there, and that's that. And I feel as if everyone kind of needs to find that umbrella, because so often we just go out in a coat with absolutely no hood, and we never seek help, and we never actually go out and pursue a way in which to protect us from the rain. And because of that, our mental illness is something which only worsens or maintains absolutely shit.
Yeah, I like that. And I wouldn't say, like, obviously I've only had family and friends, like, it's not something that's going to leave your life forever and never come back. However, when it does come back, and if you do sort of put in the work and practice, because I listened to Karamo Brown from Queer Eyes. He was a special guest on Russel Brand's podcast. I listened to it today. If you haven't seen Queer Eye on Netflix, once you finish this, go watch it, please, because it's so fantastic. 5 queer people making over someone's house. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. It'll make you cry. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you want to pee. It's great. All the things that you want to do in your TV show. Cry, laugh, and pee.
That should have been the name of the podcast.
Cry, laugh, and pee. That's a good name. Yeah, what was I even trying to say? Yeah, it becomes easier to cope with. And I always use the analogy of, like, getting a cold or getting the flu. Like, the flu used to kill people, but we practiced our methods of treating it, and now when you get a flu, like, you feel like you're going to die, but you know you're going to come out the other end because you got your painkillers, because you got your tools of coping to help you through it.
Mm-hmm.
And with people, an example of that is, like, people like Russel Brand and Karamo Brown. They were both addicts, and they say they always have those thoughts come back or have moments where they feel like they're going to dip, but because they've practiced their tools so well and things like that, it's become much easier to cope with, whereas when they felt like they were going to dip, they would just go repeat their cycle of addiction and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel as if mental illness is something that is a big problem with a lot of people with addictive personalities. You know, I have an addictive personality
Because of your OCD.
Because there you make that accusation. Yeah,
You're so OCD.
You're so OCD.
Hear that voice crack. You're so tidy. You're so OCD. I'm so OCD. I love to clean my room.
You clean the dishes. Oh my god.
We'll talk about misconceptions and misuse of mental illness. Mental illnesses as adjectives later, but sorry, what were you saying?
It's a very common thing with people with addictive personalities, because when you have an addictive personality, you're always addicted to some form of high in one way or another.
I wouldn't say high. I wouldn't say that. I'm only interrupting you and not letting you finish, because addictive personalities can come in different forms. You could be addicted to work, you could be addicted to, like, addictive personalities are similar to obsessive personalities, and that's why it's obsessive compulsive disorder, because you fixate and you obsess on something, and that in itself is almost an addiction. So because they were talking, when I say they, I am referring to the podcast, they were talking about how they were not only addicted to the drugs they were taking, they were also addicted to work, organising things, making sure things were in place. It's a fixation and an obsession on something. Addiction is mostly definitely to do with highs, but it presents itself in many different forms.
Yeah, I should explain. When I say highs, I mean those moments of kind of elevation or sense of accomplishment, you know, as well as not just like the neurological drugs, masturbation, sex, whatever, but also that sense of momentary satisfaction. That's why people become shopping addicts, you know, because they just need that little extra thing to give them that bit of sensory. I've done it. But it's a very popular thing with there, because when you're addicted to these kind of highs, these elevations, as soon as they're not there, you just want to do it immediately again.
I watched this animation. I'll see if I can find it and link in the description, but it's this like a bird walking across the line, and it sucks up like a drop of nectar. Have you seen it?
No.
It sucks up a drop of nectar, and that nectar starts to spin and fly, and it feels amazing, and then it falls to the ground. And he's like, oh, that was cool. And he walks again, sucks up another bit of nectar, and he does the thing, but it's a little bit shorter, and he falls again. And then as he does it, the highs get less higher. It never reaches the first high he had. The highs are shorter, they're less, and every time he falls even harder than before by the end when he's scuffed. And the things that the reason why people that are addicts are attracted to these highs is because it's an escape from their current reality. So they will that's why things like health scares often don't stop people, or things that you think, what, this is affecting this, and this, why the hell aren't you stopping? Be accountable for what you're doing, take care of your responsibilities. But it's the facing their current reality, which is so depressive and so harrowing, is what leads them to these highs, because they just want to escape it. They will do anything, even sacrifice those things, just to escape their current reality, just for a blissful second. And that's why a lot of people don't sympathize with addicts, because they think they're just taking it for the lols. It's like they're taking this because they in short hate the life they're living. You know what I mean? Same thing with homeless people. Homeless people are like, oh, the whole idea of homeless people are addicts is dumb in itself, but the homeless people, as in homeless people that live on the streets, that are addicts, if you give someone that £1, I don't know how much drugs are, obviously, quite clearly, but if you give someone that penny or that change, they're not going to save it up and try and rent a place out. They want a blissful second of peace and happiness to escape their current reality when no one acknowledges them. Like, which one would you choose in that second?
Exactly. I always talk about when you're a kid and you're at Thorpe Park or Alton Towers or Six Flags.
There was no American. We did have a German listener. If they are listening again, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
Thank you, Wolfgang.
I always talk about it as kind of like when you're a kid and you're on a roller coaster and it's fantastic, and you instantly just go, let's go again, okay? And you go again and it's fun still, and then you go again and it's like it's okay, and then you go again and you're totally indifferent, and then you're just looking over at the bigger roller coaster, and you're going, I'm going on that one. That one's the next step. That's going to give me the same joy that this one.
You're just sort of chasing that high.
Exactly. But the issue is, it's like you said, the biggest issue comes with the fact that this leads to our depression, in the way that depression comes when you're faced with your own reality, and when your reality is not what you want it to be, and when you're dissatisfied with your own reality. Okay, that may be because things used to be better in your eyes than they used to be. That was how it was for me, because depression came for me during a time when I denied myself grief. And because I didn't allow myself to grieve when my father died, this just led to a perpetual state of forcing myself to go, everything's fine. But because everything isn't fine, you know, like Katy Perry, when you have to tell people that you're fine but you're not really fine. But because everything, you're trying to force it to be the way that it used to be, except it's just that much bit worse. It's just, in your head you go, wow, so life's never going to be that way again. Whereas what you need to recognize, and I feel as if that's something that people don't recognize, is the fact that life is never the way that it used to be, and you can only try and make the life now better than the life that it will become if you don't do anything about it.
Being present.
Yeah, there's a great scene in the movie Her, which is one of my favorite films, starring Joaquin Phoenix, where he says,
and Scarlett Johansson,
famous trans male.
I'm not excited for
famous
that
black disabled trans man Scarlett Johansson, where he says he worries that everything that he feels in life he's already felt, and it's never going to be the same as the way that he felt it the first time. And that is the big thing for so many people with depression, is the fact that you can't look at something and it be good enough, you know? And that's how people become perfectionists as well. That's how people gain OCDs. It's never good enough. And so because we strive for that perfection, we're going up and up and up and up, and then we realize that we can't actually reach that, and then just stop trying. You stop trying to reach perfection. You stop trying to even move. You just lie in bed. You just don't do anything, because why is it worth it if it's never going to be good enough, you know? And that for me, and for a lot of other people, is the cause of depression, is aspiration. We realize in our head, in quotation marks, because it's not true, we realize they can't be reached, and because of that, human beings are designed to aspire. We're designed to aim higher and aim higher, and as soon as we stop doing that, we just kind of lose the reason to go on. And so a lot of depressed people, they in themselves don't have a reason to go on. They can't think why they should, you know. And that's one of the biggest things. That's why you're at battle with yourself, is because you think to yourself, what's the point? What is the point? If it's never going to be good enough, it's never going to be as good as it was when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when you're an adult. And so because of that, it's just never good enough. And that's how depression starts for a lot of people, myself included. You know, it starts from that moment of grief or anger or betrayal after an affair, when you realise that it was never that good. It's like, okay, so that was pointless.
Trauma.
Or trauma, absolutely. Trauma is a big one.
Woo, trauma, mental health, woo. What was I going to say? Yeah, like what you said, about triggers, what triggers it, what keeps you in it, and how you can get out of it. So the trigger may be anything. What maintains it is that there's no reason to go on, and a way you sort of help yourself out of it is that it will never be the same, because nothing ever is the same. Things are constantly changing. What you have to try and do is, that's why I think, I'm going to assume that's why you enjoy meditation so much, or the idea of being present. And I enjoy meditation. I don't do it often at all, but when I do it, I really do when I do,
I stop myself.
When I do it, it's very fulfilling, because it's being present in your body and being present in a moment and allowing yourself just to exist as is so, it's honestly, I don't know how to describe it. It's like lifting, almost like you feel lifted. And what I was gonna say, call back to the beginning of our discussion that you said like a lot of people have mental illnesses now, and Ezra Miller said in his GQ interview, we love him so much.
He's gonna be my husband one day. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We agreed on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there for that. He said that in this age, it's sort of like a choose your own mental illness adventure, or whatever he said. We'll try and link that in the description too, because we are because we have so much information. It's like a choose your own disorder sort of game we're playing, which is very much true because we didn't have that information before. Like, all these things have always existed, so when teenagers do pipe up and say they have social anxiety, believe them, because they probably do.
Yeah, because it's ridiculously common, especially because, again, like I said last episode, I talked about the fact that we've moved from survival to living, you know, and because of that,
just existing.
Yeah, and because of ourselves being faced with just existence in itself, that's a lot more terrifying than just going, oh, I'm going to sleep here tonight, and then I'm going to hurt an animal, and I'm going to kill the food.
Think about it. The concept of surviving... Kill the food. The concept of surviving is sort of a living in a present state.
Exactly.
Because you're satisfying the needs of the present. You do think long term, and you do think, okay, is this going to be a good area to settle in, whatever, but it's still very much present.
Because mindfulness is the natural human state that we get taught out of.
Absolutely. That's
the issue here. Because if we simply follow our instinct, our basic human instinct, we will never worry about August 15th when we get our A-level exam results back. We won't worry about that. We'll just worry about, like...
the grapes coming back.
We'll worry about, me hungry, me eat grape, me thirsty, me drink water.
Me hungry.
We wouldn't be making podcasts.
No, I think this is quite...
this is yeah, I don't know. But my point is, the human state has evolved, and our brains haven't really evolved with it. And so because of that, we find this conflict between the world that we find ourselves surrounded with and the world that our brain naturally goes towards. And so because of that, we have chemical imbalance, we have panic, we have sadness at the fact that we don't feel as if we belong in this world. Because guess what?
We don't.
We don't. Because as soon as we started forcing people to work for us, as soon as we started putting monetary value onto things, it became a game of strategy instead of a game of survival.
Absolutely.
And because of that, and because of that, we just don't live the way that we're meant to.
Absolutely. I think that working period, as in like working through school, working through your own day job, working through the night, working is one of the biggest things that just yanks you from being present. It just yanks you because it's like there's nothing wrong with having tasks to do like one after another, but I don't know how to phrase it. It's the fact that you're not working for yourself, because Karl Marx talks about our isolation from our own labor, which leads to what? What does it lead to?
What,
dehumanization?
Yeah, dehumanization.
Dehumanization, because labor is of human nature. We like to work for things, we like to build things, we like to reflect and improve things, and that's part of our work. And when we started doing that for someone else, and not for us, not even in a selfish way, we could do it for our own community, when the result of our work was not to improve ourselves and the people around us, just to sort of have the ability to buy things, when it no longer became ours, that's when we became dehumanized. And in a way, that's what happens when you go to work and do your 9 to 5. When that work is no longer yours, you feel it just becomes a thing to do, a thing to get out of the way. It's not, what do I want to do in this present moment? How do I want to complete this task? How can I do this to the best of my ability in this present moment? It's, how am I going to do this so I can move on to the next thing? And how can I fit these hours into here? And when I look a week ahead, am I going to be ready for this? How am I going to... It becomes a game in your head of how you live your life. And you're constantly looking forward into the future. Because time is not linear, therefore the future doesn't exist. But that's a whole philosophical discussion about time.
Which I don't care about.
Shut up. When you're constantly looking into the future that exists. Even this.
That's a
I
calendar,
like
mate.
it. I like it because it reminds me of when I need to do things, but at the same time, Tuesday the 6th hasn't happened yet, but I know when it happens, I have something to do. That's not living presently. That's. I'm not saying that you shouldn't plan for the future, but I'm saying that you should make the best of the moments that you have at this moment. Make the best of the moments that you have at this moment. You explain it better.
What's that quote from Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I watched it once.
It's something about the fact that you need to look around because the world moves really fast, and if you don't look around, you're gonna miss it. You know, if you
carry on, I was gonna interrupt you.
If you don't allow yourself to have those moments of not just self-reflection, because we recognize that can be a very difficult thing, but just looking at the world around you and just observing anything positive that you can from it.
I love doing that walking home from school because I've walked through like trees and stuff. I love doing that. Nature, top 10 out of 10.
Nature's really good.
Nature's really nice.
I always suggest something. Everyone at home do it, okay?
Everyone do it right now.
We're always feeling stuff, right? We're always touching everything.
All the noise around the mic.
Everything. We're always touching stuff, okay? Just hold your hands out and just feel them. Don't like squeeze them together. Just feel the fact that your nerves are there. Feel the fact that you don't have to hold anything to feel it, right? You can feel your hands like this, alright? And so what you're doing then is you're immediately connecting the brain that wants to be in the present to the body which is already in the present as well, instead of forcing the brain to go into the future, okay? And so this helps me out quite a lot. As dumb as an activity as it is, it can really, really help because, again, mindfulness is the source of the natural state of human beings, and it's the one way in which we can tangibly allow ourselves to be is just by not doing anything. And again, that's what meditation is about for me.
But at the same time, people think meditation is a waste of time. You sit there, you but it's not doing anything but doing a lot for yourself. And I'm gonna ask you what you think mindfulness means, but I just want to say my piece first, because there's so many things in this world, as well as work and constantly just being outside of your body, that distract us from being in the present. Social media is definitely one of them, because as you sit there hours on your phone, a whole world is passing behind you. A whole world is moving around you, and while you're thrusted into this virtual world, you know, the world moves on while you're stuck just scrolling.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? That's why it feels like, oh, holy fuck, I've been on here for 3 hours. It just felt like 10 minutes, because you've been warped into this different reality where time moves. Well, in a way, it feels like time moves at a different speed, because it's not your present reality. It's a virtual one. And things, not only meditation can help you connect to your body and be present, exercise, sports, anything that just involves you focusing on the now is very, very good. But obviously a lot of people, me included, have very difficult relationships with like exercising in their body, and which is through the media, which is, you know, unrealistic expectations of beauty, whatever. So we avoid those type of things.
Again, aspirations that are set way too high so that we feel sad when we can't reach them.
And that's how people get body dysmorphia. Body dysmorphia doesn't only exist for trans people who look at their body and they don't feel like it belongs to them. Body dysmorphia exists for anorexic people, or just any eating disorder or any body insecurity. Jamila Jamil says something really amazing, and she says, you literally don't know what your body looks like. You don't know. For people who are bodily insecure, you don't know what your body looks like, because you have such a warped image of what you look like. People often have to tell me how I look. I'm trying to learn and trying to help myself, and I do that through affirmations and just looking at my body and saying, this is it. This is what it is, and you're going to have to accept that. You can exercise whatever, but as you exercise, you have to accept what is there. So if your paunch is sticking out, your paunch is sticking out. Don't put a jacket over it to cover it up. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you have to accept that for yourself. It's not your business if other people accept it. And I forgot the last thing I was going to say.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the something I do, because things like body insecurities and body dysmorphia is to do with mental health. And being present to do with mental health. Something I do to sort of snap myself back into reality, and what I learned from a guided meditation I did, and I forget the guy's name. It was a YouTube video, and it was just his voice talking. He was talking about being present, just effortlessly be that your thoughts are like your consciousness projected onto a screen. Your thoughts are projected onto the screen of your consciousness. And I was like, wow. And something I learned from that, after that, I like walked up to the mirror to like wash my face, and I felt this lovely sense of just being inside of my body. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was looking at myself, and it was like, when you look in the mirror, you're not looking at yourself. You're looking at a block of reflected metal.
Which, by the way, your brain messes up, and it's not actually what you look like.
Exactly, it's flipped. You not only are you looking not at yourself because it's a flipped image, you're looking at a hunk of metal.
Mm-hmm.
It's reflective, but it's not reflective of what's in here and what's in here. So when I looked at myself, I was kind of like, I wasn't like looking at my face. I was just kind of like, well, that's not me though, is it? And I said like, I am behind my eyes. So whenever I get wrapped up in looking at myself in the mirror, I have to remind myself that I am behind my eyes. I'm not in that. There's a mirror there. There's a mirror there. I'm not in those mirrors. That's not where I exist. I exist right here.
Mm-hmm. You actually said two things though, which quite interestingly link to mental illness, because again, this just proves how separate kind of the mental condition can be, because you said two things there which can actually be kind of almost trigger points for people, in the fact that you said when you look at yourself you find it positive to say that that's not me, whereas a lot of people when they look at themselves in the mirror, a lot of people with mental illness can look at themselves in the mirror, recognize that that's not them, and then panic, because it can be a point of fear for them. Because if anyone has ever had the experience of not recognizing yourself in the mirror, it's the most terrifying experience you'll ever have in your life, you know. And I don't know, I just found it fascinating that, you know, we can have two very different experiences off of something that's very similar. And also you said about the idea of being in your body, which again can be a frightening thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever I've had my depressive episodes, I've always felt trapped. You always feel isolated and you always feel trapped. But not only do you feel isolated from the world around you, but you also feel isolated from yourself, as if you are this stuck soul in a bottle, and the bottle is your body, and that's what it becomes, you know. So it's interesting how these ideas can become comfortable or upsetting for two separate people. But yeah, a thing that I'd say about meditation is that you can get the experience of being inside of your body in an incredibly positive way, because like I was saying about the just feeling your senses, you begin to recognize that whilst you are your brain, because you can believe in a soul, you can believe in anything, you are your brain, okay? And your brain is connected to everything in your body. And so as soon as you recognize that you are not just this trapped organ here, but you are this interconnected system going across the entire landscape that is your body, one of the most complex things.
That was a beautiful analogy.
One of the most complex mechanisms in the history of anything ever, if not the most complex, the first to ever make art, okay? The first to feel in the same way that we feel. As soon as you recognize that you are this beautiful machine of emotion, the sooner you realize that, the more comfortable you will become in that. The more proud you will become that
Absolutely.
you are that. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole like being a soul in a bottle is yeah, very interesting, and that's why it's so important to connect your mind to your body, to not feel like that you're just a floating mind existing in wherever. And that's why we say that things like meditation or exercise, not only is exercise like, or just moving your body, like scientifically proven to improve mental illness, things like depression and anxiety, because that's literally what your body was made to do. Period. Turns out we're not supposed to be sitting for 6 hours a day in an office. I don't know about that, but Homo sapiens.
The all new Homo soap.
Homo sapiens are supposed to move around, so when we do it, our body is like, wow, I feel great. Endorphins are released immediately. So, yeah, that's something definitely you should do if you're suffering from mental illness. So, would you like... Oh, people are laughing outside.
Hello,
I
people.
hope they're having fun.
You're ruining my podcast.
No, we hope they're having fun.
He's having a lot of fun.
He's having a lot
I don't know if
of
that picked up,
fun.
but he just cackled.
Would you like to talk about I feel like we've talked about mindfulness enough. What are some
Miscongeniality.
miscongeniality? I want to see that film with Sandra
You haven't
Bullock.
seen Miscongeniality?
I really want to see it. Is it good?
Carry on.
I really want to
amazing.
see it. What are some misconceptions about mental illness that you... That's the end of my sentence.
That's a good question.
Gulp.
The biggest misconception is kind of the either overstatement or understatement of mental illness. People either make it a very, very transcendental thing, a very spiritual, soulful thing, when really it's a chemical issue. Or they
But
make
some
it...
people believe it's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, but... I don't.
Personally, he does not.
But as in people will make it something that is due to a grander external force, and because of that...
You're booming.
Okay, sure. And because of that, they take away kind of a responsibility from it. Or they understate it as, you just need to get laid.
My eyes just closed.
You just need to go out and get laid. Which in
You just
one
need to
sense
fuck.
which in one sense could be interesting, because that's something that human beings are meant to do, and if you're not doing that, maybe you feel down.
But then you may become a nymphomaniac for being attracted to highs.
And then you get an addiction.
Yay!
And then you're depressed again.
Yay!
It's not escapable. Yeah, those are the two issues. You know, the issues always are. As much as this is the definition of the word misconception, the only way I can describe it is just saying something that it isn't. Which, what it is, at the end of the day, is that you are mentally, as in brain ill, brain not doing too good, brain is sick.
But from people see it on a spiritual level. But I think it's important if you believe in it on a spiritual level, that, like you said, you still have to take the responsibility of taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? You can't let someone else do it for you. Like, accountability for improving yourself is very important. And in that podcast they talked a lot about trauma, and they said that I said a lot of things, but what am I trying to say at this present moment?
I have no idea.
I'm trying to connect it with trauma, because you have to be... A lot of people blame their condition on the trauma they experience, which is the fault of other people. And as much as those other people have to be accountable for what they did, you also have to be accountable for how you improve yourself and grow from it.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, this person did this to me, this is why I'm like this, and I'll be like this forever.
Yeah.
You have to, like they say in the AA meetings, break that cycle. Break that cycle.
Move that bus. Yeah, because the way that I see it, mental illness, just like any other illness, is 50% what has happened and 50% what is happening, okay? And the fact that, let's get lung cancer. You get it from smoking.
Or you can just get it.
Or you can just get it. But let's say you got it from smoking, and then you have it, okay? And so then what you have is, you have a point of reference of how something happened, which you can find out through something like therapy, which I suggest every human being gets. You have a point of reference of how something happens, and then because of that, you can have a point of reference of what to do about it. So, if cigarettes are giving people cancer, maybe quit smoking.
It's another thing, addiction. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying it's that easy, but all
Then just quit.
all analogy is just about undermining things. But yeah, you have to.
Do you actually believe that analogy is about undermining things?
Not undermining, but turning things into something else to make them more edible. If that makes
Edible.
sense. Yeah.
Accessible.
That, which in itself is an analogy. But yeah, when it comes to something like addiction and everything, you have to look at what causes addiction, and maybe a dissatisfaction, maybe peer pressure, maybe trauma,
trauma,
whatever. You have a reference for what has caused it, and now you have an opportunity to tackle that. Okay, and there's the biggest thing about mental illness is that other illnesses, it seems as if there's just one way of tackling it. With mental illness, it just feels so much more complex than that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people don't tackle it because they have that fear. They have the fear of the emotional strength, effort, and turmoil it will put them through. They have the fear of their life collapsing around them. They have a lot of fears. And I don't know what advice I would give to someone battling trauma. Like, because we always say when we talk about overcoming mental illness, it's a battle, you know? I guess we do that with physical illness too, because it is a battle almost, but it upsets me when that stops people from having the opportunity to do it, because that's something I did for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what advice I would give to someone who is going through it and just needs the push or just the encouragement to, I don't know, pick themselves up.
I have advice.
Go.
For everybody out there. If you're suffering from mental illness, just talk to people first. That is the first step, because talking to somebody is the easiest way to recognize that something is real. Okay? Because when you're suffering from mental illness, a lot of the time...
That's what Karamo said.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh no! Damn it!
Fucking watch the podcast, everybody, right now!
Well,
Sorry.
It doesn't feel very real. It's very surreal, because everything real is outside, it's physical and everything. This, you can't poke your brain and go, oh, there's my mental illness spot.
I like the word surreal, because I thought you meant real, not... I thought you meant when you said not real as in an illusion, but it's so real. It's like, it's so much. How can it be? It's like how can it be that much? How am I going to conquer this Goliath? But when you, like you said, when you start talking to people, you realize it's not as much as a Goliath. It's just, I don't know.
It's very important that you put what you're feeling into words, because when you put things into words in the modern day world, that's when they can become real. Okay, that's why I write a lot.
He did a poetry book and he won't release it publicly.
I'm never gonna read it. I write a lot because as soon as you write down your emotions, they do become real to you, because a lot of the time your emotions don't feel real to you because people wouldn't get it. If people don't get it, why is it a thing? Therefore it's not a thing.
People are very afraid of either burdening people with their problems, something I do, and people are very afraid that people won't get it, and because they won't get it, they'll reject them. But if that person's gonna reject you, I'm sorry, they were never supposed to be in your life in the first place.
If somebody rejects you
for opening up, because that's essentially what you're doing.
If someone rejects you because you correctly present an aspect of yourself, then evidently they don't want the self that you really are, and therefore if something is not willing to abide by reality, that's delusion, and delusion needs to be removed.
I like that, and I think it's also good to have a support system, and if you don't have one, you will find one, even if it's just two people, because they're gonna help you, because for a lot of people, they would want to speak about these things with their parents, but they can't. So you speak about these things to your friends, and if you feel like you're going to lose your friends, and then you end up losing your friends, obviously that's going to hit you hard. But that support system is definitely going to come back, and having a good, healthy support system too. Yeah,
and when it comes to support systems, I've talked to people in the past who have said, I don't know who to talk to because I don't have friends. Having friends, not having friends, that doesn't matter, because support systems are always there. You're in an age where you have access to the internet and you have a phone. If you have a phone, you can call the Samaritans. If you have access to the internet, you can go onto a forum where people are willing to help you, and because of that, you're naturally going to gain emotional connections, and therefore you're going to gain friends that way. The biggest challenge of any mental illness, in my eyes, is recognizing that it's there, because
that's the first step.
It's the first step. It's also just a massive leg-exhausting, thigh-destroying step, because you just really, really don't want to. Because as soon as you say it, it becomes real. but it is real. So you gotta say it.
Hit hard. Hit
You
hard.
gotta say it, okay? Whatever you're going through, you need to say it. And you know that old, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to
Hear it.
did it ever fall?
Blah, blah, blah.
If you suffer from mental illness and nobody's there to kind of acknowledge it in your brain, it's just not real, you know? And the longer you can keep it not real in your brain, the better it is. But what actually happens is the longer you keep it not real in your brain, the more it allows itself to grow. You know, it's like ignoring any other illness. It's the longer you ignore it, the worse it's going to get for you. You need to get that. You need to get that checkup. As soon as the doctor says to you, "You have this," that's when it's real.
I like talking about it and comparing it to physical terms because it's as serious as physical illness, and a lot of things, a lot of cultures, particularly black cultures, if you can't see it, it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to look into that, why there is such a distrust in doctors, in healthcare systems, and no sort of believability in mental illness in black cultures and other people of color, POC cultures. Maybe it's because, I don't know, we in the West especially, no, sorry, here on the earth, like the highest infant mortality rate is within black women. You know, historically, black people have been denied by the healthcare systems that provided that was supposed to help white people. So when people present, black people present illnesses, especially mental illness, it's not there. And maybe if you can't see it, it's not there. It's vulnerability is a weakness, which is very damaging.
Horrible. Very
damaging. I believed that for a very long time, and that's for a very long time I didn't confront the emotional war that was happening inside of me, and the way I worked through that emotional war was normalizing the things that I was affected by, and until I recognized that these things aren't normal, that I'm allowed to feel, because what we do when we go through emotional trauma or any trauma of any kind, to move on with the world, because like I said, the world moves around you, to try and be present, we normalize the behavior and we push it, and through normalizing behavior you're shutting off your emotions of sadness, but through shutting off your emotions of sadness you're shutting off your happiness, you're shutting off all emotions completely, which is when depression starts to bleed in, or for some people any sort of, they don't know how to handle such certain situations, they don't know, like relationships and things like that. So where am I going with this? Vulnerability as a weakness. So when you do confront those feelings, it's very shocking, it's very hard, and where am I going with this train of thought? What did I say?
It's shocking and it's very hard.
And what did I say before that?
Vulnerability as a weakness.
I was talking about black culture.
Yes.
And if you can't see it, it's not there. And also, there was a lot of spiritualism in black culture. So it could be a thing of blaming it on not taking accountability for what is there. But I don't know a lot about black spiritualism, so I can't really speak on that. African spiritualism. And Caribbean spiritualism. I can't really speak on that. There's a lot of spiritualism.
I don't know what's happening.
So I can't really speak on that, but so for a lot of people, a lot of black people are going through a lot, and they don't know, and they don't even know how to talk about it. I think you gave the advice of talking about it, but some people don't even know how to articulate what they're feeling, not because they don't think what they're feeling is real, it's because they've never had the opportunity to confront those feelings before. That's where I was going with the whole shutting off your emotions. If you've never confronted it, it's not even not there, it's not a thing. Period.
And what you're saying is the whole I don't even know how to talk about this stuff. I feel as if the best phrase to use first before anything else is I'm struggling. Because the thing is, we force ourselves to make everything seem as if it is easy for us. That's one of the biggest problems with our world, is everything has to be easy. We're not allowed to struggle. So the first thing that you need to do is recognize that what you're going through is a challenge to yourself. Just like any other illness, it's a challenge to your mortality, it's a challenge to your health. and that for me is the first step. So if you need to talk to people, if you feel like what you're going through is beginning to overwhelm you, the first thing you have to say is that I'm struggling or I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's the easiest phrase, because as soon as you say that, I feel as if that's the easiest way for people to understand. It's a struggle. It's an overwhelming thing. So those words, I'm struggling, I'm overwhelming, they relate it to whatever that person has been through. If they haven't suffered from mental illness, they can relate that to a physical struggle. You know, everyone physically struggles at some point. They break their ankle, you know? Everyone breaks something in their life or gets ill in some other manner. And so as soon as you can say, I'm struggling, they go, oh, I've struggled. What's this person struggling of? And then you describe it as mental. And they go, okay, so they're struggling. But it's a different kind of struggle to mine. And then the more you talk about it, they realize, oh, hang on. Struggling is struggling. Okay? And anyone to themselves can go, I'm struggling.
Even just saying it to yourself. If you say it to someone else and they deny your experience, it's about having, again, that support system, or having that surety of yourself that you believe when you say you're struggling, you are struggling. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, that's why a lot of people suffer in silence, because they don't feel that they can even tell someone that's struggling, and when they do, they're shut down. Which happens a lot in the black community.
And with men.
And with men. Black men, black women, and all men. Masculinity's gross. I feel like we've been recording for an hour.
Not an hour, I don't think.
Like 50 minutes?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay, 10 minutes left.
Okay.
We feel like this is going to be a two-parter. I think we should.
I could talk about this topic.
Because right now we've only really talked about mindfulness.
Yeah.
And how to help yourself.
Yeah.
Which I think is always good, because a lot of time when we talk about mental illness, we talk about how hard, harrowing, and how people don't understand.
And I've been intentionally trying to avoid the shock value of mental illness, because when you describe it to somebody, they can go, oh, that's awful. And then as soon as that's awful, it becomes kind of like this bizarre thing to them that's
foreign. And then when they actually get them themselves, they don't recognize it, because they think that it's supposed to be this crazy whirlwind of experiences. When it starts off, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like that. It sort of just seeps into your life like a fog.
Yeah, it's like what's that stupid cartoon?
People
watching.
It's not a bad cartoon, okay? It was a animated cartoon thing on YouTube called People Watching, where it's just watching people have discussions like this, but not like this, except it had very cringy moments.
It's like if
very cringy moments, so it was very good.
It's like if Linklater had Tumblr, and you're gonna watch his movies and you're gonna love them. But they
is that the thing about the dreams and consciousness, the movie that just was about dreams and consciousness?
Yep. By the way, Waking Life is a beautiful film about the mental state and how kind of unusual and surreal the mental state can be. I'm doing the hand thing. Shut up. But there's a character in there who describes her depression as like this awful roommate, right? And that's what it's like, you know, or it's like any other relationship, because kind of you do have this relationship with yourself. I've forgotten who talks about the fact that there's two parts of the soul. There's you and then there's the voice, okay? There's like this... Because when you think about it in your brain, you just have your present instinct, and then you have the actual voice in your head, which is reasoning and everything. And so gradually that voice just becomes more and more grey, or more and more sinister. And it just happens so gradually for a lot of people, or for some people so suddenly that they just don't know what to do with themselves. That's why we get kind of spontaneous, like, suicides after grief.
Like spirals.
People suddenly... I hate the word snap, because it's just like a...
It's like you can't.
It's like an irreparable,
together.
like... Yeah. But people have this sudden shift, like a big wave, okay? It's like a... Do you remember that huge tsunami that happened?
No.
And it just totally devastated, I've forgotten which country.
Tsunamis, I've had dreams about tsunamis, and they freak me the fuck out. Irrational fear of things that won't happen to me.
Global warming, though. Anyway, these are sudden erratic events that feel nearly impossible to predict and nearly as impossible to react to. And that's the issue, is we don't know how to see these things coming in a lot of cases, and we don't know how to deal with them in a lot of cases. So what we've talked about, in my eyes, is the first step in dealing with them.
And seeing it, what you just did is, how do you recognize it in your life? Because like we said, you don't like describing it in such a fantastical, I don't know what other word to use, but just like a fantasy way, you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was... I'm always someone who's thought a lot about the kind of their existence and everything. But it was...
I'm kind of like an existential crisis guy, you know? That's not my thing.
No, but it was when my brain went from existential to crisis. That's the moment that I realised. When the two words got joined together, and one day, you know, I was thinking about my existence, and I just kind of went like, huh, I don't really like my existence. I was just like, what? Huh? And my brain was going, huh? Me?
And you were going, huh?
Huh? Did you just... My brain was like, no. Did you? And then I realised I was depressed. But these things can happen suddenly, gradually, but the point is that you always recognise them kind of suddenly, I feel. I feel as if everyone goes through that moment of revelation, you know? Whether or not it's like a... wait a second, or a sudden, you know, everyone at some point in their mental illness hopefully will reach that point where they go, okay, all of these things that I know, I've done the maths, and they're a problem. Okay? Like,
and they're a problem.
Because you actually have to think it through. Like, is me not liking my own existence a problem? And from an outsider's perspective, you go, yeah, of course, duh. But from the insider's perspective, your brain's going, no, because there's so many reasons. Look at all these. Look at my list. I made a list of reasons why your existence is a problem and it's bad. And you go, okay. And then you go, no, but that's still a bad thought process. You know, you need to take a kind of external viewpoint of what would somebody else be thinking right now if they were in my brain.
That's why therapy's good.
And that's why we have a thing called therapy, where paid professionals who know about this kind of stuff can actually pull you through it instead of an 18-year-old boy.
Yes. But the thing about therapy, if you're doing it on the NHS, it's so very hard unless you're literally crying to your GP like, I'm gonna kill myself today. They'll be like,
oh,
I think you're okay.
Oh, buddy.
I'll give you some medication.
Buddy.
And medication's a whole different story because it doesn't work. You have to match your meds. You know what I mean? And they give everyone the same meds, so you don't know if it's going to be your match. And if you're going to take them, make sure you have a good support system around you.
Absolutely.
Or you monitor yourself. Like, if it's not working for you, don't take them anymore. You know, be very honest in yourself. I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm just saying that be conscious and be optimistic, because a lot of the times they do work. But without therapy, it's almost like bandaging a broken arm without fixing it first. That's the analogy one of my siblings gave. And you gotta do the work. So I don't know, I think there's an app now where you can get like a psychotherapist.
They are not trained whatsoever. It's volunteers. So
never mind that.
I do not recommend the app over regular therapy, but if you can't afford regular therapy, you can't get a hold of an NHS doctor to give you therapy, the second best thing is untrained people, because untrained people,
they want to help.
Yeah, if they want to help. Nearly everybody does. Okay, and I can guarantee that you can find somebody who does, because people volunteer too. People want to help, okay? And those people who are wanting to help either have been in your situation and have gotten through it, or are going through it, and they feel what you're feeling. They either have that, or they know about the situation, they get it as much as you can get it, but also they have the gift of an external perspective. Okay,
just a third unbiased opinion. That's so valuable.
It's a beautiful thing. It's
so valuable. What Hannah Gadsby in her comedy special said, foresight is a gift, and I'm tired, because she was talking about how people deny themselves foresight. They don't think about the consequences of their actions, and they use that as an excuse to be like, so the whole idea of like, oh, it's just locker room talk, blah, like they didn't, so they avoid the consequences of what they say. So foresight, as in, look at the not necessarily using foresight in a different way, but a external perspective. Someone hearing you, someone listening is a gift. Use it.
And I like talking about consequence, just in general. I love talking about consequences. But with mental illness, another great
Sorry, you slurred your words.
With mental illness, I'm tired. With mental illness, there is a great disconnect between it and physical illness, because the consequence of physical illness is so much more apparent in the fact that, oh, my leg's broken, I'll just walk it off. Okay, I'll just ignore it. The consequence is it gets worse, it gets infected, you die. Whereas mental illness, I'm just going to ignore it. The consequence is your mental state gradually gets worse. You'll either recognize it or you won't recognize it, and eventually it will just make your life really, really shitty, or you'll do something about it and your life won't be anymore, which is literally the worst case scenario. But a lot of people who suffer from mental illness will have been in that spot where they consider the worst case scenario to be the best case scenario. And that for me represents the huge flip of worldview and understanding within the head of someone suffering from severe mental illness. The fact that the worst thing that you can do for yourself seems like the best idea you've ever had. That's how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad it is, and that's how bad you need to deal with it, because I promise you, if you're suffering from mental illness, this can happen. If you ignore it, this can happen. You can reach that state of mind. You know, a lot of people I know have been there. I've been there. People get to that point so easily, and it's because ignoring things is the easiest thing that you can do. You can ignore your problem all you want, and it can kill you, no matter what your problem is, or it can just completely destroy you in some way, shape, or form. It can destroy your relationships with loved ones. It can do so much to you, and you feel as if you can't do anything to it. That's a bad thought process to have. You need to recognize the fact that you can take back control here, as long as you acknowledge that something else is in control. As long as you don't acknowledge that it's there, it's going to win.
Recognizing is the first step in healing.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. And I really like what you said. Period. You needed to put a period at the end of that sentence, because it was a...
Period.
As the French do say.
Period. That's
what they say.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. I really liked what you said. I really liked what you said.
Glad about that.
I really liked what you said. I'm trying to say it in my own words, but I can't. But I really liked what you said, and I'm very surprised that this conversation went in the direction that it did. The just being mindful, solutions, helping things, it became more of, it's not really advice, but at the same time it's just like helpful, because I thought we were just gonna complain about misconceptions, things that are wrong with how people view mental illness and things like that. But that conversation is short, you know what I mean? That conversation is mental illness exists, stop ignoring it.
Yeah.
You know? And that we talked about how you know it's there.
Acknowledging a mental illness is like coming out, okay? You will recognize that the extreme weight that you had on you was so...
Some people are homophobes, don't compare it to that.
No, but for somebody who experiences coming out as like a positive thing, who gets the positive experience after it, mental illness is kind of a similar situation, because, you know, the comparison isn't direct, but whenever you acknowledge a part of yourself that you have been refusing for years, that's when it becomes real to you, like we said. And as soon as you become real to you, that moment is a very big relief, because that disconnect from your mind and the world around you just becomes a little bit less.
Yeah, I like what you said, because a lot of people think when they confront these things it's going to be grueling and their world's going to fall apart, but it's very freeing.
No.
It's very freeing. It's just having honesty with oneself is so important. I was going to say something I'm gonna talk about Karamo Brown for the rest of my life. I don't give a
You
fuck.
really he went from like your least favorite member of Queer
Because
Eye.
he still has questionable attitudes, but he, at the end of the day, he's a therapist and he's well qualified and he knows what he's talking about.
And if you say that Karamo
mental
doesn't do
illness.
anything on the show, then you don't get what the show is about.
No, because listen, he
hard.
was saying that on the show he covers basically how these people are doing mentally. So if they haven't cut their hair in 20 years, he's like, why?
Issue.
But he actually talks for like hours on end. He said he would talk to people for 5 hours, but they would just show him like walking through a woods with them, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So he does actually do work with people. That's why it's hard to see in the show. But he said
burp.
tasty. Oh, I just lost vision in my eyes.
That's good. And Cara really needs glasses.
I'm fine. He said that he talked about love-based decisions and fed-based decisions, and that we need to stop making decisions out of fear, but because by doing that, we are robbing ourselves of autonomy, because autonomy means freedom of choice. We are doing things for a higher authority, wherever that may be. That authority may be your parents, that authority may be your workplace, that authority may be the fear of your future, what's going to happen in your future. And when we make decisions out of fear, we are no longer making decisions for ourselves. We're making decisions for that authority. And when we realize that we have authority over our own lives and what we do, we make love-based decisions, which are much better decisions that will make us happier in the long run. And he put it much more eloquently, and it made a lot more sense. That's why I suggest you listen to it. It's on Spotify and I think on YouTube maybe. But love-based decisions are best. Decisions for yourself and for your own well-being. So something like, what can I compare it to? What's a fear-based decision? What do you think?
A fear-based decision? Prejudice?
That's
prejudice.
Wow. How are you going to do that? Go ahead.
Well, because a lot of prejudice comes from a paranoia of kind of replacement or danger, because you're kind of taught that people are a danger to you, or that they'll replace you. You know.
Okay. I can see that. So you don't try and connect or see the humanity in people because you fear them,
Yeah.
or you just fear the authority that's telling you to fear them, and if you don't abide by it, then because you'll get banged. Shit, get banged.
I made a loud noise from the chuckle that I did. Yeah, absolutely. Donnie Darko, do you remember the scene about everything being based around fear and love?
I don't remember that scene, but that's a good film. Also, watch that.
There's a scene where
main character Donnie Darko.
The main character, Donnie Darko, from the movie
Donnie
Darko by Richard Kelly. He's in his class, and there's a Christian therapist, motivational speaker guy, and they're watching a videotape of his, and he says everything is based on fear or love, and then they give him a line, okay, and at one end is fear and at the other end is love, and they give them scenarios, and they have to say whether they think those scenarios are made out of fear or made out of love. And he says it's total horseshit because it's just too complex to separate into fear and love, because we can't binarily oppose them, you know. There's a huge spectrum of human emotion that's based around these ideas of fear and love. It's like those grey areas exist, but grey is still made out of black and white, you know. And the black is fear and the white is love. That was a
nice sentence. Say that again.
I forgot. Grey areas of emotion exist, but grey is made out of black and white. Okay, there's inherently negative and positive attributes to the human brain. Okay, and these can be negative or positive depending on the circumstance. You know, and the fact that
yes, very much depends on the circumstance.
Fear, in a situation where you should be afraid, is far better than love. Okay, if you see a tiger in front of you, your fear instinct telling you to run is a little bit better than the love instinct to tell you to give it a big old kiss on the cheek.
Yeah, that's what I don't mean by fear-based and
Yeah.
love-based.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm just trying to say, there is a big spectrum here, okay? And what you need to do is you need to not base fear and love around your kind of emotional response to something, but think, are my actions loving actions? And if we're going to bring it back to mental illness, the biggest fear-based action that you can do as a mentally ill person is to ignore the problem. Okay? Because the elephant in the room isn't being acknowledged because people are pretty frightened about
An elephant in the room.
breaking the status quo of not talking about the elephant and also the massive elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And mental illness is the biggest elephant in the room in most conversations. And as soon as you recognise that it's there, everyone's talking about the elephant, everyone's having a good time with the elephant. Okay, we're discussing the elephant. Well, how'd the elephant get there? Oh no, the elephant got here when my grandfather bought the elephant from the circus or anything. Boom, we get the origin of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
As soon as we get the origin of the elephant in the room, we know how to deal with the elephant. What food does it like? Oh, it likes this, this, and this. Okay, let's feed it that. As soon as we gain understandings of the attributes of something and the origin of something, we can start conversation about something and start improving the way in which we deal with something. You can't deal with a huge elephant and you can't deal with mental illness if you don't talk about, discuss, and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Conversation is so important, and it's so weird in our individualist society, surrounded by how many people live in this country. The depression is at its highest because people feel so alone.
Mm-hmm.
So alone. And maybe in part 2 we'll talk about isolation, but one more example about fear-based and love-based decision making. He actually did a psychoanalysis on Russel Brand for a second, because Russel Brand he was talking about his father. Karamo was talking about his father and how he was treated by him, and that's how he ended up in an abusive relationship. So Russell started talking about his father. He wasn't in an abusive relationship, but how he doesn't want his daughters to grow up and think that their experience was their father was a bad one, and how he wanted that so badly, so he tries his best. Because they were talking about like we were talking about, having the courage and recognizing the responsibility of your own actions that you can change. And Karamo said, right there, that's a fear-based decision. You want, no matter how hard you work, you're going to have to realize that your kids are going to grow up one day and say, I love my dad, but he was an asshole. And he was like, oh, I don't want that. He was like, oh no. He said, no, you're going to have to do that because you can't work on yourself through your children. Well, you can, but you that's not how you're going to, at the end of it, you can only work on yourself with yourself. You can't try and project that onto your children, because it will never be good enough. You know, you're the only person that will be disappointed by the end of the day because you didn't do that unachievable job.
And I find it interesting, the phrase projecting onto somebody.
I love saying that because it's so real.
Because
the astral projection is so real.
Because people really, really worry that when they talk about their mental illness, they're going to drag people into it, they're going to bring other people down. That's why I didn't talk about it for so long, because I didn't want other people to be upset, okay, when I was upset. However, what you need to realise is that when you discuss mental illness, you're not projecting onto somebody, you're projecting for them. You're projecting onto a big wall that they can watch as well, and they can go, okay, I understand this now. You can't talk about a movie with somebody if they've never seen the movie, you know. But
like
you can't
do all the time.
But if you just tell somebody the whole plot, like I do all the time,
like you do all the time,
they're never going to really understand the experience of it. However,
Yeah.
if you just present to them what something is, and not force it down their throats in any way by performing actions based around your mental illness, if you instead discuss the mental illness, you are projecting an accurate representation of it that other people can understand. And as soon as other people understand it, things start to get better.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through the same world as each other. We find different perspectives of that world. We get given and dealt different parts of that world, but we all experience the same reality as each other, whether or not we delude ourselves into seeing it differently.
Yeah.
And so what we need to understand is that the more we discuss perspectives of reality with other people, the more we will gain a wider understanding of it. And
That's the moral of this right now.
The simple fact of the matter is, you are not going to understand the perspective of reality that comes from someone with depression or anxiety or OCD if you don't actually listen to them talk about their perspective.
And you will never know their perspective wholly. That's something I learned as someone who supports and friends with people like that. You don't know what it's like to be in their mind and in their body, so don't pry. Well, like, ask, but don't. Sorry. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Just let them say, what can I do for you? Because if I don't know what you're going through, if I ask you what triggered this and you don't know, me asking you again and again what triggered it isn't going to help you understand what triggered it. I have to ask you, okay, what do you need from me now? If that's space, okay, I'll give you space.
Mm-hmm.
You know? The thing about, like, realities, because I always find, like, a solution to a lot of the problems we talk about is communication, talking, hearing different perspectives, hearing different voices, just anything at all. And that always, like, saying it, like, I know it's a good solution, because I've never seen that work.
Mm-hmm.
It always seems like a very intangible idea, because we often talk about it in, like, democracy and in government. We want a diverse range of voices. The Archbishop of Canterbury that we used in our exam, there's been many of them, but the one we used in our exam when we were talking about,
I know the one,
secularism.
Yep.
It's because there's two different types of secularism. I can't remember which way they go around, but there's a whole one atheistic, one which is basically France, where they've banned any religious expression, a way to oppress groups of minorities from freely expressing their identity, but that's another thing. There's atheistic, and there's also he describes the other one as just hearing as many voices as possible,
mm-hmm.
an exchange of voices, and I think that's so beautiful. And then another philosopher talks about that in democracy, that we should essentially have, like, town hall meetings so we can hear each other's voices and perspectives, that the solution to democracy is more democracy. That's what we learned from the philosophy convention. And that idea seems like a dream to me, and I don't like it that it feels like a dream to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because even me myself, I struggle to listen to people that I disagree with.
Yeah.
But I try to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So
yeah.
maybe we'll have some conflicting voices on this podcast, who knows?
Hopefully.
Well, if you want to be on it, let me know.
That'd be fun.
That'll be fun.
Wolfgang?
Well,
I'm joking, I can't speak German.
I can't speak
Wolfgang.
German.
But we do really like you, and we really appreciate your comment.
Yeah, international.
So, I believe that's a nice area to kind of conclude. Would you like to give any final thoughts on the topic of mental illness before we inevitably do a part 2, which is really grueling and horrible?
Believe people when they say they're sick. Don't try and impose your opinions. Ask what people need, and also be supportive for them. But don't be supportive if someone's like, I want to kill myself. Don't support that. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here for you, whatever you want to do.
You want rope?
No.
That's horrible.
That's horrible.
The point was that it was horrible.
Because that's sort of been the mindfulness is important. Be mindful, be present, find ways to do that. If you still don't really know what we're talking about when we say be present, be mindful, Google is free.
The moral is Google is free.
The moral is Google is free, and if you're watching this, you have it. So,
So, people love you. Even if they don't know you yet, they do love you.
People love you.
People want to help.
Even if you don't think people love you, even if you're like, shut the fuck up. If you believe in God, God loves you. That's what's important. If you don't believe in God, people love you. If you don't believe people love you, that doesn't fucking matter, because regardless,
you can't change the reality that people love you.
No, you can't change the reality that your body existing is basically scientific magic, and that you are of worth and of value to the world. Period.
You are You are quite literally a rare substance. You are a substance that, within the infinity of the universe, is extremely valuable.
In the infinity of the universe,
you are life,
multiverse.
You are life in itself, and that in itself, when you consider the 1 in infinity chance of you existing, is in itself a miracle, and your life should be a celebration of that miracle. Okay, and as much as
but don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
Oh, the assholes out there, do better, because you are that valuable that you could do better.
Exactly. You're wasting the thing that could be so valuable, you know. But when it comes to mental illness, just remember that if there's nobody out there that feels a romantic love for you, a platonic love for you, there are people out there who are doing things such as the Samaritans as an act of love. I wanted to do this because I feel as if talking about mental illness in itself is an act of love, you know. Opening up conversation is an act of love. I'm doing this because I love you.
Open. I love you.
And we love you.
We love you.
And we want what's best for you. Even if we don't know you, we want what's best for you.
You know what I mean?
Because we want what's best for people. And you are people, and you are part of a community and a group and a world that will love you.
So, before we close... No, actually, I'll talk about this in the next one. Just the
Sure?
interconnectedness of humanity and the fact that we're all literally the same, but we still find a way to isolate ourselves and our identities.
That's going to be a big one. But on that note, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for listening, because a few people made it to the end of the last one. I said, "Oh," and I. Yeah. So thank you for making it to the end. If you watch it in sections, if you watch it all the way through, you're a real one.
And if you've enjoyed yourself, if you've thought about yourself, if you're gonna help other people, then you're doing what you're meant to do after this. And if you're not,
fuck
then
you.
You can fuck off.
Bye.